Okay, so we're diving into one of the most chilling legends from the great northern forests. But I want you to know, this isn't just some campfire story. We're going to explore this as a plausible danger, a darkness that might not be born from fantasy, but from the brutal real-world horror of trying to survive out in the deep woods. This whole story, it doesn't start with a monster jumping out from behind a tree. It starts with an atmosphere. It begins with this profound, almost crushing silence. An isolation so total it can really start to mess with your head. And it's in that quiet that a certain kind of hunger can start to grow. A hunger that, believe me, consumes a lot more than just the body. So first up, let's get into what we're really afraid of when we talk about the Wendigo. I mean, forget all the movie monsters you've seen. The authentic terror of this legend starts with a human being. Someone who gets lost out here in more ways than one. Now, this is what I find so fascinating. There's this huge disconnect, right? Pop culture has given us this beast with deer antlers and claws, a pretty straightforward monster. But the original Algonquian folklore? Well, that describes something way more disturbing. A person who has been completely unmade by desperation. It's a symbol of spiritual rot. See, the real horror isn't meeting a monster in the woods. It's the idea that you could become one. And the traditional descriptions are just chillingly specific. This is not an animal. It's a gaunt, skeletal human figure, just grotesquely stretched out and wasted away. It's this walking contradiction. It's supposed to be immensely tall and powerful, yet it's starving, always starving. And the key detail, the one that really gets me, is the heart of ice. That's the symbol right there, a total loss of human warmth, of empathy. So the big question is, how is this monster even made? The legend isn't really about finding some creature lurking out there. It's a cautionary tale about the horrifying process of becoming one yourself. At its very core, the Wendigo is an evil spirit. It's the embodiment of winter at its absolute cruelest. But see, it needs a host. It preys on people who are isolated, starving, or maybe just plain greedy. And it gets its power when a person breaks the most sacred law of all, just to survive. It's a powerful warning about what happens when desperation makes you lose your humanity. And this just perfectly illustrates that terrifying process. It's a step-by-step fall from grace. It all starts with something so basic, so human, the primal need for food. But one forbidden act, that one choice, it invites in this spiritual corruption that just freezes the soul. The act of survival becomes an eternal damnation, and the person you once were, they're gone for good. Okay, now let's look at how this ancient myth just crashed head-on into the real world with a documented and truly horrific true crime case. This is where the Wendigo literally steps out of folklore and right into the court records. So picture this, it's 1878. A respected Cree guide named Swift Runner takes his family deep into the wilderness for the winter. He comes back in the spring, alone, and looking disturbingly well-fed for a guy who claims his entire family just starved to death. Yeah, you can see why that raised some red flags. This sequence of events turned a trusted member of the community into an absolute figure of terror. So when the Northwest Mounted Police go to investigate his camp, what they find is not a scene of tragedy. It's a slaughterhouse. The evidence was just undeniable. But the most damning detail of all, they found an untouched food cache. This wasn't about survival. Something else. Something truly horrible had happened out there in the winter silence. So when they finally confronted him with the evidence, Swift Runner confessed. But his confession wasn't just, yeah, I did it. Oh no. He claimed he wasn't responsible. He insisted that a Wendigo spirit had possessed him, that it had turned him into a monster. He was arguing that he wasn't the killer, he was the final victim. So what do we do with that? Was it really a demon? This is where the story gets even more unsettling, because it starts to bridge this ancient folklore with modern psychology, suggesting the real danger is actually coded right into our own minds. For years, psychiatry actually recognized something called Wendigo psychosis. It basically describes a mental breakdown that can be triggered by the intense psychological pressure of starvation and isolation. The person becomes obsessed with cannibalism, and their delusions are shaped by the very folklore they grew up hearing. The monster, from this point of view, is born from a mind that's just breaking under unimaginable stress, which is a very plausible danger for anyone stranded in the wilderness, even today.
So in the end, we're left with this haunting ambiguity. We've got three competing theories. One, was Swift Runner telling the truth? Was he really possessed by an evil spirit? Two, was he suffering from a profound psychological collapse, this Wendigo psychosis? Or three, was he just a calculating murderer, cleverly using a shared cultural fear as the perfect alibi? The fact that we can't be 100% certain, that's what makes his story so terrifying.
So finally, let's talk about the modern monster, because this legend, believe it or not, is more than just a history lesson. It's an enduring warning that is maybe more relevant now than ever. You see, the Algonquian peoples always understood the Wendigo as something much more than just a cannibal. It was the ultimate symbol of greed. In these communities where survival depended entirely on cooperation and sharing, individual selfishness wasn't just frowned upon, it was a mortal threat to everyone. The monster was the physical form of an appetite that could just never ever be satisfied. And this right here really shows how the legend has evolved. Modern indigenous thinkers use a similar term, psychosis, to describe the insatiable hunger of our modern consumer culture. So if Wendigo psychosis is an individual's mental break, Wetiko is seen as a sickness that can infect an entire society, a mindset of endless consumption that devours resources, cultures, and the planet itself without ever feeling full. Which leaves us with one last chilling question. The story of the Wendigo is a warning about a monster born from isolation, desperation, and a hunger that can never be filled. And when you look at our world today, it really forces you to ask, has that monster ever really left the woods? Or did it just find new, bigger hunting grounds?